Hey guys, this is Arthur and you are watching How to Draw Creepy Creatures. Now for today, I want to do something really different. So all of the pictures that we've done before have been in black and white, so I thought it'd be cool to do one that was in color. And so to teach you how to do color, I thought that we would use watercolor, which is a great medium for sketches. Alright, so get a very basic sketch that we could work on, just like I do a dragon, that'd be fun. And, alright, first of all here, let me just move the camera a little bit so you guys can see. Right. All right, we got our paints here. Just some very basic paints. We got a hair dryer here. I'm going to show you what that's for later. Got paper towels. You definitely need ones in case you mess up. I got one clean water and one water that we're going to use to, clean the brushes off. So it doesn't matter if the little paint gets in there. Got two very simple brushes that we're going to be using for this small project. Just these, just this fine tip, and then just like a normal medium brush. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to do green for this dragon, really normal dragony color, but I want it to be like an olive green. So I'm going to do one coat of this brown solution I made. I mixed a couple different colors in order to get it. And what I thought would be fun about this is that I learned to watercolor myself by watching YouTube videos, and all of the stuff that they taught you how to do was like sunflowers and houses and birds and stuff, and I thought there should be a watercolor lesson, an introduction to watercolor where you can paint monsters, because that's much more fun. So that's what we're going to do. Now there have a lot of online, well, I mean to say apps for watercolor so that you could do it on your phone or on your tablet. I've tried them out and they work really well, but I actually prefer to do this myself, just like do it by hand, because it's like kind of fun. It's therapeutic and you get to play around with all the different colors mixing and everything. And there's a definite lack of control with watercolor. It's going to do what it's going to do, which kind of makes it fun because you never, even if you have a set plan of how it's going to look, you can never plan for what the finished product is going to look like. Now, make sure that you get a type of paper that says it's watercolor safe, because sometimes normal sketch paper, it will warp and ripple, or it will soak through the page to the other side and ruin any other picture you have back there, so you don't want that to happen. So make sure that you get paper that says it's good for watercoloring. You'll notice it's be a little bit thicker than normal sketch paper, so that's how you tell. Okay. Okay. The reason I like doing watercolor for fantasy art is that it really works for this particular, I guess you could say, genre of art, especially with Arthur Rackham's stuff in watercolor is absolutely extraordinary. It's beautiful. So if you want inspiration, definitely look up the greats like Arthur Rackham and Aubrey Beardsley. Edward Gorey did some really cool fantasy art with watercolor. And Tony Ditzerlizzi is kind of like a modern Arthur Rackham in some ways. His stuff is very similar and absolutely spectacular. He's also co-authored the Spiderwood Chronicles. So if you're learning how to draw and paint monsters, I would definitely just suggest looking at his stuff as a source of inspiration. Kind of fill in these wings a little bit, make them a bit deeper brown or olive. Now that we got this first coat done, this part's kind of fun. We're just going to fire up the hairdryer. Oh. Okay, now that step's done, I'm going to clean off our brush a little bit, and then we're going to add a little layer of yellow. Now I'm going to focus this yellow color on the top and kind of leave the underbelly a little bit, kind of like it's a slightly lighter color like you would see in an alligator or similar reptile, like a monitor lizard. When drawing dragons, I actually like to use real animals as a source of inspiration. Particularly, I imagine it's kind of looking like a cross between a T-Rex and a velociraptor a little bit, where it's big and muscular, but it's also sleek, streamlined. You could easily see it flying. So I would look up a bunch of different animals, and dinosaurs in particular, when trying to make up your design for a dragon. I just had a little blob of hair on the tip of my brush there. Oh. Well, when you're making up your design for your dragon, just look up your favorite reptiles. And also, I like to use birds a little bit, so I'll observe the way that birds move, or the shape of their talons for the feet. Because that's what basically a dragon is. It's just sort of like a cross between a reptile and a bird. So use those two things as a source of inspiration, kind of mesh them together. Okay. Alright, so far, it's kind of like this grayish yellow color, which is a good, like, sort of bland base color, like something to start with. And then we'll add more colors as we go on, and make it sort of richer, more vibrant. Okay. And sometimes you have to clean off your brush because a little piece of your hair might fall off while you're painting, or something similar. You can get into the paint and make these horrible blobs, so make sure that your brush is always clean. Okay. Let's dab this a little. Let me use a dryer piece. Let's dab this just a little bit. And make sure to really dab the areas where it looks like the water's pooling, or the paint is pooling. Alright. Also, I'm going to do the first layer of the flame, because the first layer that we're going to do is yellow. do a few sparks. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this area, but I'm going to leave this part a little bit wet. Alright, so now that we have this yellowish brown layer, we're going to do a little bit of blue. Just remember that, like red, blue is a very powerful color, so you need to be careful with it that you don't add too much. Alright. Just take that big blob and sort of thin it out a little bit. See how the yellow and the brown show through a little bit, so that it starts out as blue, and then it starts to turn this sort of beautiful, almost cross between olive and peacock. Please excuse my cat. Alright. Okay. Okay. See, isn't that just an amazing color that you can achieve these really cool color effects if you layer it so that it kind of shows through like stained glass. Yeah, if you did all the colors at once, you would kind of get either they would all mix together and it wouldn't look right, or you would end up with this like tie-dyed look, which is fine if that's the sort of thing you're going for, but it doesn't really work in this case. See if you spill a little bit over the lines, you can fix it while it's still wet. Okay. Okay. Now for the stripes, I kind of imagine it as having stripes kind of blend in a little bit, so we're going to take some of that blue that we used before, except we're going to be using it in slightly more generous amounts. So. Oops, a little bit too much. See, you can still fix it while it's still wet. Okay, that was close. Okay. We're going to take a little bit more pigment and mix that. Okay, there we go. Now, let's let those stripes dry a little bit. Now we're going to take a big amount of yellow and smush it all over the flame. We're going to want to get the flame area really wet. Now we're going to let this dry. Well, it's clean, I should say. Get some of the red. Just gently drop it in there. Let those colors swirl together. Oh! Oops, I hit the wrong one. Okay. Sometimes you get into it and you don't even realize big mistakes that you've made. That's the importance of fixing it while it's still wet. Then the damage isn't permanent. Blue flames will look cool, actually. I just don't think it would have worked for this. In fact, I feel like that could be a richer, more intense red. So I'm gonna get a little bit more. We're waiting for that to dry. I'm gonna work on the shadows on the dragon a little bit. Yeah, because now these stripes are dry. Okay. Let's use that richer, more intense blue. Okay. Remember, anywhere on the wing that the light is being cut off, just add a tiny dab of this blue pigment here. In fact, let's deepen some of the shadows here. Remember, since the underbelly is supposed to be a slightly lighter color, don't darken the shadows too much over there. Might use some more of these like sparks. I don't like the way that it's pooling right here, so I might take a cloth and dab some of that up. on, it's still damp. I don't like that there isn't that much red in there, so I'm just going to add a tiny bit more. Okay, now let's dry this. Okay, now we're also going to add just a little bit of red to his mouth. There we go, that's good. Now also, we're going to suggest, actually, you know what? Okay. There we go. We're going to suggest just a little bit of shadowing by going to very carefully take a tiny amount of this blue, just dab it on here. Then we're going to take a little bit of the brown. By mixing that with the blue, we get this gray color that we can use for shading. You could use black, but that would look so intense that it might not look right. So this is a better alternative. Okay. All right. Let's dry this a little bit more. All right. While I was sketching this, I left a few pencil lines, which now that this is dry, we can kind of attend to them a little bit. Alright, we lost some details while we were painting, so let's fill those in a little bit around the wings. Let's especially work around the face so that those incredible details don't get lost. Okay. Okay. All right. Sign off with your, you know what? Sign off with your artist mark. And you have just done a watercolor painting of a dragon, which is cool, right? It's a very basic sketch, but I'll just get into some more complex stuff later. All right, like, share, and subscribe, and I love hearing your suggestions, especially if it's suggestions for creatures that you want me to draw. That would be great. And as long as it's nothing too freaky, anything from folklore or mythology, I'll do. Also, I was specifically looking for Halloween creatures to do. So if you guys can come up with your favorite Halloween creatures that you want me to paint, I will paint them for you. All right. And also, anybody who completed a lesson on this show and would like to show off your artwork, simply scan it, and if you did it on paper, just scan it and send it to me at arthurwrotethis@gmail.com. As long as you give me your written permission, I will show it off on the show with your name to show everybody that you did it. All right. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and goodbye.